You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch UK Radio.
Good evening everybody, and a very warm Wednesday welcome to you all. That's actually a lot harder than you'd realise to say. But anyway, hope you're all well and you're having a good week. Well, it's being an interesting time at the moment. So anyone who follows me on social media will know I was happy as a pig in shit really today, because the school that my sons go to, I managed to get hold of some of their logbooks and stuff. So basically the headmaster's diaries and headmistress's diaries from 1928 onwards, and I've spent a few hours today deciphering the writing, and it's quite interesting to sort of see them write about the fact they had 10 children off with whooping cough and 22 off with measles and all that kind of thing, things you don't tend to think about. So it's been an interesting week, and yes, a warm Wednesday evening, Richard Clements. Wishing you a warm Wednesday, warm welcome, warm wishes. Stop being pernickety. I didn't say Henry VIII. Hi, SJ. Where was I? I've just forgotten. Oh, and this weekend, boys have got a long weekend off school, so we've decided to go to Kent and do some history type stuff in Kent, so I'm looking forward to that. Hitting Dover Castle on Friday, hopefully. Finally get to see the hospital tunnels that they've got there, which I didn't get a chance to see last time. But apart from that, I've got not a lot else going on at the moment. Lots of writing, lots of reading, and researching a lot for tonight's show. Now, I'm quite excited about doing this one because this place is somewhere that it's been on my radar for quite a while, and I genuinely didn't realise until I started researching into it just how much there is to talk about. And so it's a good job that I have got my lovely friend, Mr. Christopher Chell from Haunted Houses, to talk about it with me.
Hello, Penny. How are you today?
I'm all right, my love. Was that a good enough intro? Did you sort of feel, understand that you were coming in at that point?
Yeah, I thought you could have delved a little bit more into me and really bigged me up a bit more.
All right. This is the man who taught me, although he probably doesn't realise it, on Facebook, how to make Chinese seaweed, which means
done it?
I have done it, and means I'm very popular now with the husband because he loves it, and I've mastered it and getting it all nice and crispy and just right as well. It's taken a few goes, but
fabulous.
And this is also the man who has made me laugh on more than one occasion, and when somebody was a bit derogatory about some work of mine. Well, it was the comment that you made about me, the hope the poor love recovers. Well, you did make me snort my drink with laughter at that. So it is the wonderful, the one, the only Stoke boy himself, Christopher Chell. Is that better?
Oh, stop it. You're making me all bashful. Oh, bless us all. Bless us all. Good evening, everybody. Yes, glad to be here. Doing my best as always.
I wouldn't expect anything else from you, Mr. Chell. I really wouldn't. So you're a bit more with it than the last time we did an interview, because I think the last time we did an interview, you'd had like 2 or 3 functions back to back and about 5 hours sleep.
Well, 2 hours sleep, to be honest with you. Because when you got the adrenaline running, you can lay in bed with just your eyelids, don't you? So I was literally like 2 hours. I was absolutely exhausted, wasn't I? And it was very difficult for me to actually speak. Never mind, listen as well.
You did good. I mean, it was a pre-record, wasn't it? For that reason, because we knew it might go a bit awry. But
today,
you did fine.
We're live, aren't we?
We are. We're live. Live. We are. It's good fun going live. It's No, Chinese seaweed isn't cabbage. Aha. It's spring greens.
Who says it isn't? Who says it's not cabbage?
Well, it's spring greens, isn't it?
It's spring greens, yes.
I wouldn't class them as cabbage.
But only the outside leaves. You need to use the ones that are a little bit more drier. You can't use the fresh ones because they spit all at you, won't they?
Yeah, it didn't work. That's probably one of the things I discovered, and also making sure you dry them off afterwards before you serve them so they can dry out as well after they're cooked. Yeah, I mastered. I actually mixed some garlic in with mine.
Did you? Oh, I love putting all the salt and the sugar on and everything. Oh, it's amazing.
No, I didn't try that. I tried that before and it didn't work. I think it's because I didn't get them quite dry enough. But I rubbed garlic on the pan before I put the oil in and then fried it and then chucked a clove of garlic in with it.
Go you.
Yeah. Oh, I can't go wrong with a bit of garlic. Can't go wrong with a bit of garlic.
Definitely not. No, keeps vampires away.
Exactly. And it made a nice little side dish to the halloumi burgers that I'd made for the husband and I. So there you go. But it was yourself who... I never knew how to make it until I think you'd put, like, you had a vegan Chinese homemade takeaway. And I was like, oh, is that Chinese seaweed? How'd you make that? And
definitely, because I obviously eat plant-based food only. And so by doing so, I learn how to cook. So, Chinese is my speciality. I love Chinese cookery. Anyway,
yeah, I'm coming for tea. I am coming for dinner one night. I tell you, I'm coming for dinner. Vegan Chinese takeaway sounds delicious. I think that's one of the things with those sort of plant-based diets and even vegetarian diets as well, is to get a decent mix of food, you do have to cook. You do have to learn how to make stuff, and
yeah, you do.
Otherwise, it is blooming boring and monotonous.
You can't just have jacket potato every day, you know what I mean? So you've got to learn.
Exactly.
Got to get your penny on and get in that kitchen with your spatula and get some skills.
I know, it's quite impressive. There's some very nice plant-based food around, even if you don't want to eat it all the time, even if you just want to sort of give your body a break every so often. There's some very nice recipes around.
Because you know what they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, so let's go for it.
What did I make the husband the other day? Oh, scrambled tofu.
Oh, nice, yeah. With black salt.
No, I put in, it's a powder that you get. It's a vegan, it's like an orangey coloured powder, begins with B, I think.
Oh, is it the yeast things you use?
Yeah, a bit like that. Yeah, it's quite tangy. I sprinkle some of that in, mix that in with it. But it seemed to work. It was quite nice. He liked it. He ate it. So,
there you go then.
There you go. There you go. But we're not talking about food tonight, are we?
We're not. Do you know what it is? Because I haven't eaten yet. That's why it's gone this direction, isn't it?
I'm so sorry. If I hear rumbling, I know it's your stomach. We're going to be talking about the Leopard Inn, which is literally just up the road.
Yeah, it's like 2 miles away from me, or 5 minutes drive. So yeah, it's really close to me. It's a fantastic location. I love to visit.
Yeah. How long have you been going there for?
Well, I've always ignored it for a long, long time because obviously with the company we've been running for nearly 6 years. We've only been doing it for over 12 months.
Right.
Just because of the nature of the building, because it's like a working pub. Sometimes anyone who's investigated working pubs, they're impractical sometimes, you know, because it is a working pub, so there's going to be lots of contamination with noise, lots of, you know, all kind of things going on. You know, yeah, so we've always avoided it. But then Dan, who's in the team, he actually went ahead and just confirmed a booking and said, Chris, I booked it. I said, all right, let's do it. And we absolutely enjoyed it. It was so good. And now we're doing it 2 or 3 times a month. And we pretty much did from the start.
So how do you get around the noise? Sorry. What was that, Chris?
I was just saying, the guests absolutely love it. You know, it's a really good location that is really sought after.
Yeah.
It's one of our top sellers.
Yeah. So how do you get over the noise contamination from the fact, I'm presuming the pub's still open?
It is, yeah, and they have a live band on as well downstairs often, or a disco. But you'll find that the noise was really contained quite well in the pub. So there's a lot of the doors you close between yourself and the band itself. So there are some areas which you will get, you know, like a dull thud coming through. There's a lot of locations as well that they're the same as that. It's like if anyone's done the Edinburgh Vaults, they'll know that you hit the nightclubs next door, or go to York and do the dungeons, and you've got the same. So when you're in those areas with a little bit of background noise, you obviously do tasks or vigils which don't actually require full silence. You know, like a tape tipping is not my favourite thing to do, but the guests love it. You know, stuff like that where it doesn't require noise. But obviously, you're not going to do any EVP work or any calling out in those rooms because it just wouldn't work. But there are areas of the hotel which you can get pure silence in, So yeah, if we break the building down to 3 areas, say one of those areas you get a bit of noise, but the other 2 areas are absolutely fine. You can do whatever you want. You won't get any disturbance.
Brilliant. Okay. So, the history of the building. I mean, this is haunted history, so I'm going to talk about history at some point. I found that the pub has been a pub since about the 1760s. However, other reports said it's been a pub since the 1640s. I couldn't find corroboration, any articles or any first-hand accounts.
I mean, the whole story of the Leopard is very, very confusing myself. There's lots of dates. Obviously, you've got the date. I think it's 1730 written on the front of the building itself. And I've heard stories how it used to be 3 cottages that were obviously put through to make it pub. It's obviously changed a bit since then as well. It's just lots of conflicting information. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to get up to the records office, I think, in Stoke to really sort of double check the trade reports and all those kind of things. Most records office do have they're almost like trade accounts of all the businesses that would have been running, and some of them date back to the 1500s. So there is a way to do it, but it's not something you can do remotely. You actually need to be in there, sort of almost handling the documents to find out, and looking at tithe maps and land registry documents and all those kind of wonderful things. But we know it's been around since the mid 1700s as a pub for definite. In fact, it's meant to be where Stoke boy himself, Josiah Wedgwood, and James Brindley met to discuss the Trent and Mersey Canal.
They did, yes. And obviously Wedgwood, as a character, he's also the grandfather of Charles Darwin. I think we discussed that last time, didn't we?
Very probably, yes.
So, there's a lot of connections. So a lot of business was done within the Leopard Hotel, including the planning with Brindley and Wedgwood.
Which is, quite a good name to be able to mention, that Wedgwood, who is the father of pottery in a way, is so known in the area of the potteries.
Definitely. I mean, just behind the Leopard, you've got the Wedgwood Institute. Then you've got Wedgwood. He had his house just across the road to the right, and that's still there now, called the Big House. So that was his obviously office/house for a lot of his business around. There was a art school behind the Leopard as well, and there's so much stuff. Wedgwood was a massive character, was a very, very rich man, and had a lot of property and a lot of fingers in a lot of pies.
But he also set up a lot of businesses and worked for the locals and
built all the housing and everything, and all the canals. He literally built Stoke and Trent. Him and the Road Alton and Spode and lots of big pieces.
Yeah. So we know it was around since the mid 1700s as a pub, and I would say, looking at the building, the way it's designed, it does look like a Georgian type property as opposed to a sort of, it could have been Tudor underneath, could be. I'd need to look into the tithe maps and all that kind of thing. But whenever you Google it, and that's normally where I start my research, I Google stuff to see what gets thrown back at me. And one of the common ones is it's meant to be haunted by a witch.
Yeah, we've never encountered Molly Lee on any of the investigations, and there's which I'm probably sure you found in your research, that there's a lot of conflicting research as well that actually ever visited the hotel.
There's a conflict in research as to she was this malicious witch who put a curse on there because people wouldn't let her come in, because she's meant to have had a facial deformity, which meant people were scared of her, and decided that she was a witch because she's supposed to have walked around with I believe it was a crow or something similar to that on her shoulder, putting curses on people. Yeah, a big blackbird on her shoulder putting curses on people. And when she died, which was in, I believe it was about 1748, 1749, she's meant to have, when she was buried in the actual church graveyard, which I find strange as she's meant to have been a witch, The then vicar said, no, you've got to make sure her tomb is at different angles to everyone else so that people can see that she was a witch. Now, I kind of find it hard that they would bury someone who they think is a witch in consecrated ground anyway.
Yeah.
And when I started digging into it, I found something out that kind of really does stick two fingers up to the people who painted her as being this evil, cursing loner of a witch who did nothing but milk her cows all day and walk around town with a bird on her shoulder. She was actually born Margaret Lee. Molly was her nickname, and she was born Margaret Lee in 1685, and apparently quite soon after she was born, her father passed away. Her mother remarried a chap by the name of Joseph Booth. Now, what I couldn't find...
That's a local name, Booth.
Yeah,
Very
it is. Yeah, it is,
name.
isn't it? Yeah. What I couldn't find in this thing is where this money would have come from. But supposedly, when she actually died, she was quite wealthy. She owned quite a lot of land, and in fact, she ordered in her will that her best friend, who I think her surname was also Booth, but I might be wrong on that one, that she could keep the land that she lived on forever, and that her families could live on it like an indefinite, I suppose, life interest trust almost, that she had it for indefinitely. But then she wanted the rest of her estate sold to fund a hospital for poor women.
Right, okay.
Now, she also deliberately excluded her, it says in the will father-in-law, but they think she means stepfather, Joseph Booth. He was a known drunk, and she deliberately excluded him and said he was not to receive anything. And she also set up an income for a couple of female friends that she had. She actually used to give a lot of money to the church. She regularly gave money to the poor, set up a scheme where the poor families were given, I think it was like a penny a month or a penny a week or something, to buy bread. It seems to me she was an incredibly benevolent, kind lady who just happened to have a facial deformity. Now, my gut feeling, and I might be completely wrong because this is a gut feeling, is the reason that the rumour was spread that she was a witch is that she made an enemy of the local pastor, one Reverend Spencer. And
this is where the story all follows, and and the whole story is his version of everything, isn't it? So the local legend is his version. Yeah, I know what you mean. He
was the one that wanted her grave changed because she's got a great big tomb in the church graveyard. He wanted that changed. Yeah. The story goes that because she was quite a strong benefactor to the church, and she used to attend church on a regular basis, and there was accounts of this, that she would be seen at church, which again, if she was a witch, would she really? Supposedly he had come to see her for more money for the church, and she is meant to have kind of intimated that he didn't want to spend it on the church. He basically wanted to spend it on himself and on booze because he was a drinker.
Oh, so he was scorned. He was used.
And so the one person he thought would give him money, because she was God fearing and everything else, didn't. And it seems to me that he must have been quite powerful, as local vicars were back in the 1700s, and he's the one that started the rumours because she looked different, because she lived in a little old cottage away from everyone else. She was a spinster, she was a loner, she looked different, she acted different. He spread the rumours that she was a witch.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, he mentioned as well when she died, didn't he? How if anyone was ever ill, or if any milk turned sour or food went off, her ghost was responsible for it. Yep. He kept several people claiming they saw the spirit of Molly Lee still walking around, causing trouble.
Sitting on her gravestone, I think it was one of the accounts, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there's apparently the blackbird was still seen hovering around the church, and wherever it was seen that there was like some illness or something went on. So the pastor caught the blackbird and then dug Molly up, put the blackbird in with Molly, and then had the grave turned, is it to face south? think it was.
I can't remember. It's turned so it's perpendicular to the others, so it's not facing the same direction as the other graves. Yeah.
And it's right. It's interesting as well because her tomb is literally right outside the church. It's one of the fanciest tombs there.
It's huge, isn't it? I've seen the photos. Yeah.
It's obviously seen better days now, but it's literally there. Right in front of the church door.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Now you see, I wonder. Well, one of the things that I also found on the internet, and I don't know if this is accurate because I haven't, again, been able to look at maps and stuff to verify it, is that where her cottage was is now actually Port Vale football ground.
Okay, yeah. So that area is a Victorian area. So all the buildings around there are Victorian, and they're all factory work houses. So I can believe that back in the 1749 she died. So before then,
about that, 1748.
Yeah, so I can imagine all them totally just being all fields and that. Totally, being quite a rural area, which is where she supposedly have lived. Yeah, I can totally understand that.
And see, the only reason I could see for her haunting the Leopard, and genuinely this is the only reason I could see that she'd be going in there and that she'd be annoyed, is if that's where Reverend Spencer used to drink a lot, and she's so angry at him besmirching her memory. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think it was that TV show that said that she was seen often in the cellars, wasn't it? So
the show we shall not name.
Yeah, that TV show.
Very probably, and I think people have. It's one of those things. The suggestion now, people have jumped on it because the amount of newspaper articles I found of sort of ghost hunters have gone in there and said they've met Molly, she's talked to them, and all this, and it's like, well, I can't see why. I can't see why she would. She's more likely to haunt the football ground than
of course, yeah, and,
or the grave where her tomb is. That's been. People have tried to break into to see if she really is a witch, and I'd be more inclined to be there and sort of standing guard than I would going into a pub that I couldn't find any. I mean, there might be a link that I don't know of, but I couldn't find any with the research I was able to do.
Well, I say she may have. Was she anti-alcohol? I don't know.
I wondered that actually, especially with the fact she had a stepfather who, according to the reports,
heavy on the alcohol. Yeah,
would like to drink. Don't know what her father died of. The fact that this Reverend Spencer was meant to be fond of a tipple. Maybe she was. Maybe she just didn't like men because so much of her life was supporting women. I just wonder if she just didn't like men.
Potentially. So she always turned away men's. Not that she probably got many advances being the way she looked, but. Yeah, any request for help from any man, maybe the priority.
Yeah, I think she sounds pretty amazing for a 18th century or 17th, 18th century woman with a facial deformity who would have had the cards stacked against her from birth. If this is true, if this will is true, I think she sounds pretty darned amazing.
Well, maybe she was also maybe she offered help with some herbal remedies or something like that.
Maybe.
Which, a lot of the women having the land to do so. Maybe that's what started off the rumours, maybe that she was actual witch.
Who knows? But I think she sounds pretty amazing. I think she sounds, and I said I'd love the chance to meet her and find out if my gut feeling is correct as to what was going on. But she is a sort of a, I suppose you say, a myth of Burslem, isn't she? You can actually find it if you put "witch of Burslem" in the into Google. It comes up with Molly.
Everywhere. Yeah, I mean, there's even some living day relatives who claim to be related to her. I think even there was it a civil leak as well? Something
like that, yeah.
Yeah, so she was quite a famous witch who claimed to have been a descendant from Molly Lee, and I think there's a few people now living in the city who all claim to be descendants.
Not quite sure how. It must be quite distant because she never had children.
Oh, yeah. Exactly, yeah. So, but there's a lot of those claims going around. It's a mystery.
So let's go on to one of the other sort of reported spirits. Well, the pub itself, during the 1800s, it was actually owned by a vicar, apparently, who let it go to rack and ruin, and the next owner was Mary Lees, who started to restore it and put a bit more time and effort into it. And then the next one is probably one of the ones who did the most to to the pub and the area, James Norris.
Yes, the famous James Norris.
The famous James Norris. Now, he also built a bottling plant and brewery opposite.
Across the street. Yeah, across the street, and there was a tunnel running between the Leopard and the bottling plant.
Mm-hmm. Is the tunnel still there, do you know?
There's, I think there's 13 tunnel doorways. They're all blocked off now, but if you go down to the cellars, you can see the outlines of where they all used to be.
Wow, okay.
So there's a lot of tunnels underneath the Leopard.
Wow, okay.
Who knows where they're all going to?
Very interesting, very interesting. So you wouldn't have got smuggling in Stoke, would you? Like booze smuggling or anything?
I couldn't say.
Well, no, it's normally coastal, isn't it? You get smuggling like that. That's very interesting.
I mean, obviously with a brewery across the way, you wouldn't need to smuggle it because it would be a licence, I'd imagine. But yeah, I don't know what. Oh, maybe it was body snatching. I don't know.
Who knows? That's another one for me to look into if I get up there to the records office. But anyway, so he spent quite a lot of. He took it over around 1872, and he spent an awful lot of time and money sort of developing it and changing it, and he actually added 57 Victorian bedrooms to the original 6 that were there, sort of establishing more its relationship as its reputation as the Leopard Hotel, as opposed to just an inn with a few rooms
above the bar. So yeah, that's the area which I was discussing, which can be a little noisy. The original oldest part of the building, but then, as you mentioned, the James Norris section, that let's say more modern, but not pretend it is modern by any shape or form.
Now, James is one of the ones that people report they meet, and they say he's not very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And do they think that James is the Leopard Inn poltergeist?
We've in several occasions now. I mean, we've probably done, I don't know, let's say 20 odd investigations so far this year, really. James has come through on a few occasions because we get mediums with us. They've never met each other, from week on and such. So yeah, James has been a prominent character, but he doesn't come through in the area that we discussed that he built. Mm-hmm. We get in the older part of the main room. So there's also 2 characters that come along with him as well. I won't touch on them right now unless you're obviously going to mention it later on. But yeah, so poltergeist activity-wise in that area, you do get it. There's we've had doors open on us, and we've had a chair slide across the room, which I didn't witness, but I've obviously heard it. And there's also reports. There's a few dolls up there. The landlady claimed they're haunted, but yeah, you know what I mean. So they're porcelain dolls anyway, and they're sitting on in chairs. We've had a report where some guests actually put the doll on the chair, asking for the doll to be pushed off the chair, and nothing happened. So they moved around, and as you were passing back, 20 minutes later, past the room, they just happened to look through the doorway. Yeah. And as they did, this doll shot off the chair and just landed on the floor face first. So them guests had a very good night. But so you do get a little bit of activity, poltergeist-wise, within the older part of the building, directly above the pub, where mediums have picked up on the name of James as well as Ouija boards. We've had a gin come through on a Ouija board.
Okay.
You could tie that in, maybe.
Okay. Well, that is interesting. Well, James himself. Well, actually, I'm going to go back slightly, because one of the other things I found that happened in Burslem. Now, Burslem, even though it's a part of Stoke-on-Trent, and you were explaining to me that Stoke-on-Trent is how many different little towns make up?
Well, it's 6 towns to make up one large city of over 250,000.
Okay. And Burslem is an area. I don't know what the census records were back in the sort of mid-1800s, but I found the 1991 census said there was 21,400 people living there. So it's not a huge area, really.
No,
22,000.
Like town with it, yeah.
Now, it was also the site during there was in 1842 there was a general strike, and it was all to do with working conditions. It was actually what gave rise to the trade unions coming about, and there's something in history that's quite well known called the Pottery Riots, where loads of the workers from all the different sort of areas, if you like, of Stoke were all coming together to riot against working conditions, pay, etc., etc.
Holidays, wasn't it? Time off.
Yeah, pretty much just working conditions in general, everything that they were given, what they were allowed to do, how much time they were allowed off, and all those kind of things. And there was, in October 1842, there was actually a very big riot in Burslem, which the I suppose the alderman who was helping the dragoons, I think it was, who were based there. There wasn't many of them. There wasn't many military based there because they didn't think they'd need it. And he actually met with them at the Leopard before they went on to where the protesters were gathering. The Leopard was where they met.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And there was two rioters were actually shot, and he was the one that gave the command to shoot them. Because there was something like in the region of 5,000 rioters to about 300 militia and soldiers.
I can believe it. I mean, the pottery industry is a huge industry back then, It's world renowned, so a lot of people in the city, or in the towns, should I say, it wasn't a city until 1910. So they wouldn't have all been from Burslem. They would have come from
they did. They travelled in from all the other areas because they were almost almost like a grapevine saying, "This is where we're meeting today to riot," and they'd all come in from the other area. They'd got wind of something like 5,000 travelling in from another part of Staffordshire, so they wanted to stop the riot before the others arrived because they couldn't get the military there fast enough. So there was two people, and quite a few others ended up going to prison. There was also in the Leopard, Thomas Eaton supposedly confessed to murdering someone in London 12 months prior. Although, even though he confessed to it, he wasn't found guilty in the end, even though he maintained he was. That's quite an amusing one.
Who did he know? He must have known someone.
Well, no, he kept saying, "It's me, I did it," and it was actually the Surgeon General said he couldn't have done it. So that was a very strange one, but it does make you wonder what has been told over pint glasses in there. So here we have James Norris, one of the famous, probably I'd say the most famous, well-known owner of the Leopard. Now, he was originally from Lancashire, and he moved to Staffordshire with his wife, Harriet, who, good lad, he liked an older woman. She was about 5 years older than him. Good lad. I'll say that because my husband's younger than me. And they had 5 children, according to the census I found of 1871, of varying ages. In fact, it looks like Harriet had her last child at about 41 years old, according to the census. But sadly, Harriet died in 1873 and was actually buried on on Christmas Day, 1873, in Cosley. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Cosley. That's somewhere in the West Midlands, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 25 miles north. I looked it up on a map. It was about.
Was it north?
Yeah, it looked like it was north of Burslem, slightly north of Burslem, about 25 miles.
I've not heard of Cosley, but okay, yeah.
That's all we say. That's what I found. But that's where I believe she was buried. And 6 years later, he remarried a lady by the name of Eliza, who it was a second marriage for both of them, from what I found out. So I'd say, James lost his wife when he had a couple of quite young, had a toddler at home and other children of various ages. So it can't have been easy for him, running the brewery, running the pub, running the hotel on his own with these children, although I'm sure the children would have helped. And interestingly enough, in the 1881 census, 3 of his children still lived at home with him. The other 2 had moved out by then, and I believe one was a solicitor actually by then. So he can't have had a very easy life. I mean, to make the move from Lancashire to Staffordshire in those days wouldn't have been easy. There must have been a reason. There must have been something that drove them to make the move. Losing his wife when she was in her mid-40s, or 42, I think she was when she died. That can't have been easy, even though it was not unusual. It can't have been easy.
I was about to say that because obviously it wasn't unusual back then, wasn't it? So maybe they were not twice as sensitive to death as maybe we are now. Although it still hits hard, and I imagine it does.
Yeah, it probably would have been harder if it was him that died and not her. But if that makes sense, because it was normally harder on the women, because the women weren't breadwinners. He would have still been a breadwinner, and he would have just been expected to find another wife, which he'd
been a workhouse, wouldn't she?
Possibly if she didn't have family she could live with, or her children. I think 3 of the children would have been old enough to go out to work. It was just the 2 younger ones she would have had to sort of. I think when she died, one of her youngest was 2. No, she would have 2, 5, and 8. I think the 3 younger ones. So it would have been hard on them. But death was not unusual back then. It wasn't unusual. If you had 10 children, only 6 or 7 of them would actually make it past the age of 5. But he did remarry Eliza, and then his trail goes it went a bit cold after 1991, I must admit. I struggled to find... So I think he might have either sold the business or moved out of the area, but his business itself was still being advertised in local newspapers up until the late 1940s. The James Norris breweries, yeah.
Oh, wow, so quite a legacy then.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't find out who owned it, or who was running it, who was sort of directors or whatever, because unfortunately those records are almost impossible to find, unless you go to the archives, National Archives. But it was still being advertised as being the best purveyor of fine wines and spirits, all bottled on site, etc., until the 1940s.
Interesting. Yeah,
so he did have a huge legacy.
Must have done, and it's all gone now, though. I mean, you've everything that's obvious anyway. I mean, there's still quite a few pubs, and we've discussed previously, haven't we? Pubs that will be around. The brewery's well gone. It's just housing now.
Yeah, it was pulled down in the 1950s, I believe. They just shut it down and just pulled the building straight down.
It must have done, and I think the land must have stayed vacant for a while, because what's there now is quite modern looking. Like probably 90s or something. So.
Well, it looks like it coincided with the hotel rooms being shut, because the hotel rooms got shut down in 1956.
That's right, yeah.
And it's around the same time that the brewery got shut down.
Yeah, so the story is that the hotel got shut down for reasons of it just lost control of it. With the fact that it just got like really bad prostitution, murders, rape, all the nasty characters just kind of use it as a base. So the story is, it kind of shut down and blocked off for that reason, but also discussing the brewery closing down, that might have been the real reason why, just because it went out of business.
I couldn't find, I mean, one of the things I looked for is any murders associated with Burslem, because that was one of the things I read, that the hotel was associated with murder and drama and all of that kind of thing. I couldn't find any directly associated with the Leopard. Any gang warfare. I mean, I found a lot associated. Well, I mean, I told you I found quite a lot associated. The name Burslem is where the murder occurred, or where they were from. I also, but I couldn't find any. And I found a lot that they lived. The Leopard was probably their local, basically, where they sort of looking at the map and where the reports were saying they were from.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I couldn't.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I couldn't find any that mentioned an incident having happened in the hotel or the pub, which I thought was quite strange. I thought that possibly it had been shut down because it just couldn't keep up with the more modern day, post-Second World War kind of luxury that people were.
That could be the reason. I mean, one likes to give stories away, don't they? Be true or not. So yeah, obviously the story is it just become a right den, so they just had to close it down. And obviously there's a few stories of myth as well about the murders and all that took place, including one of a lady in a bathtub that we've encountered as well. Yeah, it's interesting that like you say, we discussed there's been a lot of murders in Burslem, more than you'd imagine for the population size. But it just makes you think, were they committed within the pub and then just dumped in the street, so nothing actually happened in the Leopard. It always happened elsewhere, if you know what I mean by that.
Could have been. I mean, there was a couple that could have been done. I mean, obviously back in this late 1800s, early 1900s, they didn't have the forensics to determine where it was done, if it was done at the place where the body was found. And
like I said, there was 13 odd tunnels underneath in the cellar leading to different areas of Burzum in every direction. So, I don't know. It's, found it out.
So what have you ever picked up there that might indicate that it was a den of iniquity at some point?
Well, obviously I'm a local person myself. The Leopard is infamous within. Everyone knows the Leopard has been haunted, and everyone knows the reasons why it's haunted, or what they think is the reasons. It was known as Savoy of the North. Yeah, it was a really classy place to stay, but then it just turned into just a dive, somewhere that you wouldn't take anybody.
Yeah.
When all the stories going on about the prostitution, and that's the reason why it all closed down. And that's the local knowledge of the building, anyway. But actually, on the investigations itself, you get a lot of stuff coming through. The Leopard tends to bring through, more than anything, personal messages through Ouija boards and glasses. Right. But spirit actually within the building, being an event company, guests love to ask the question, were you murdered?
They do, yeah.
They love to ask that. And obviously the Ouija board always says, yes. So then obviously you just go along the story. So a lot of the things that come through on Ouija boards and stuff, it's there to what you take with a pinch of salt, as you know. Ouija board is Ouija board. So yeah, a lot of stuff comes through in that respect. We've had mediums on site, or should I say guests who have some ability, and they've going into. I've had on 2 occasions people going into one of the bathrooms and mentioning to me that they'd seen a lady in the bath who was surrounded in blood, just in the water. So that was interesting to me how it came through from 2 separate people who, had not met before. So for me, that's interesting, which is why I find it odd that maybe that was suicide though, rather than murder.
That's what I'm wondering, actually, the way when you just said that. I wondered if that was somebody who slit their wrists in their bath. Yeah,
so it's a very interesting place, and we don't really have what you consider a quiet night there. You can go a lot of places where not a lot happens and stuff, but yeah, it's a great location which always seems to deliver for us. I just wish there was, because obviously I don't attend all of them, and we've split into 3 groups, so I don't get to experience everything that everyone gets. So it could be other people are picking up on the same stuff as we've had, but we've not had that discussion, or have not been present, to confirm, jumping up in excitement, saying, yeah, we've had the same kind of things, So it would be interesting if we could. But
start keeping almost like a diary, what people experience, and then see if you get any repeat experiences as you visit there so often. That would be fascinating.
Definitely. I just wish, as if we were a smaller company, I could do something like that. But unfortunately, when you're a certain size, it just becomes, once it turns 2 a.m, when that event finishes, that event's done, packed away, finished with, onto the next. So it's not a case of, documenting stuff, because you're literally moving on at such a fast pace. So it's a shame. Yeah. But maybe it's something I should consciously try and do.
I'm just thinking about it. I'm thinking about you could even suggest the landlady keeping a book for anyone who has weird experiences to sort of start noting them down.
Oh, bless Sharon. That would be a challenge.
Oh, would it? Oh, okay.
But yeah, Sharon's lovely, the landlady. But I don't think she's a diary keeper.
Okay, no, she didn't have to write them. Just say that it's there, and if anyone says to her, do you know what happened? I was in the kitchens, and so this plate just flew at my head. So can you just write it down, and then we'll see if it ever happens again? That kind of thing.
I can suggest it to her. We're having our Christmas party there, actually, this year.
Oh, cool!
So, so they've got a function room at the back with a big picture of Molly Lee on the wall. How amazing.
Oh,
and so come January, when we're going to have a Christmas party, who knows? You never know.
Sounds good. Well, you mentioned though that James comes through a lot, which does make sense, because actually James's eldest son was also called James, so it could actually be either of them, because older James would have lived there when they first took over the pub, James Jr. So it could be one was known as James and the other one was known as Jim, to sort of separate them. What other names did you say come through quite a lot?
Well, with the James that comes through, we get a little boy that comes through. It's been reported by a few people now. Mm-hmm. I'd probably say he's about 5 years old, and he's been said to have been like a little sailor suit, little shiny buckled shoes, and it's a bit like what Donald Duck would wear from a Disney cartoon.
Okay.
Proper old. And so he's been given the name of Jonathan, who comes through. Mm-hmm. Then we've got a lady who's always in the background, but she doesn't actually communicate, so a couple of mediums have picked up on her as well. We don't have a name for her. Mm-hmm. She's been described to me as looking a little bit worse for wear, a little bit rough, let's say like a unkept hair, in a kind of like a maid's kind of look about her. Mm-hmm. She literally looks like someone who would work there. So, but other than that, she doesn't really interact with us, unlike this James character who, like I say, in an area which we consider the most active area, the whole location, where we get the poltergeist activity, and that's where this James character comes to be.
So is James the little boy, or does the little boy come in with James?
He comes in with. So we've got James the gentleman. There's 3 rooms that he tends to hang around in. Hang around, for a better word. And then there's this Jonathan. He tends to be in 2 certain rooms as well. So I wouldn't say the link together.
Right.
But when I talk about an area of the hotel, it's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms directly above the main inn, so main pub. So it's like the oldest part of the location. Okay. So 3 spirits within that area. Now, whether they're all linked together or whether they can interact with each other, I can't say. But those spirits we do get coming through quite strongly, quite often, which is always interesting. So yeah. Okay.
And you think this little one's about 5 years old?
Yeah, he's been described as being 5 years old, and the name of Jonathan, in a little sailor suit. So, and he likes to kick balls around, play with balls.
Well, I mentioned there was quite a lot of murders in Burslem.
Mm-hmm.
One of the murders was a woman by the name of Emma Lucas drowned her 5-year-old child in 1908.
Didn't know that, because I was about to say he looks around that age, the little Donald Duck kind of costume.
Yep. I don't know his name. I didn't get round to finding his name because it didn't mention it in the articles. Yeah, but he was 5. He was 19. That was 1908.
And you got the woman around who tends to be there as well, but she doesn't announce herself. No one's picked up on a name for her. They just know that she's present.
Now, she, from what I remember, she was maintaining not mental instability, but that she had no choice. She didn't mean to do it. It wasn't. I can't think what the term is that they would use now, but that was in 1908, which those sailor costumes would have been fashionable then. I believe she'd come out of the workhouse as well.
Well, she looks rough. Like I say, she's been described as looking very rough. A bit like a Monty Python drag queen.
Maybe ask her next time call her Emma and see if she responds.
Should try that. Making a note now.
But it's just, it doesn't say it was at the Leopard. It just said she drowned. I'll see if I can find out any more about that. Actually, now you've mentioned it, see if I can give you any more information once I.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
But her little boy was 5, and
it's a very prominent characters that come through. A lot. I mean, if there's a lot of characters that come through like on a one-off occasion, but just to mention the fact that they come through often, like 4 or 5 times in the last year, which is really interesting because you're with different faces, different groups each time, and they're not in cahoots. They're not all, Facebook messaging themselves to tell them you're seeing this just so it tricks people, So,
interesting.
Such a great place, though.
So the fact, though, that the Victorian rooms, these 50-odd hotel rooms, are now literally empty and derelict. It must be like a paranormal person's playground in there. Surely the fact that it's literally it's not been touched in 60-odd years.
Definitely. I mean, if anyone has been to Gresley Old Hall in Derbyshire, and you know that the state that building is in, the Leopard is in pretty much the same state without the pigeons, of course. So, you know, in bad weather, water does drip through the ceiling. There's plaster hanging off the wall, or the wallpaper's peeling off, the paint's peeling. If you were going to film a creepy horror film, you wouldn't have to touch it. You just go in and it's just there, exactly what you would want for a Hollywood film. In itself, it's just crazy.
Is it a nasty place though?
It has. I mean, a lot of people have reported. I think it's the first floor. Yeah, the first floor. There's a spirit that hates females, so that'd be a good place for you to start off.
I was about to say, give in to me. Yeah, I've had a fair share of those. I normally get them to change their mind.
Yeah, there's a lady-hating spirit. So I'm trying to think now. I don't think I personally encountered them, but I don't go to the Leopard as often as I'd like to. A lot of the team pretty much do it religiously every month.
Yeah.
I'm like the special guest appearance at the minute for that. But yeah, a lot of them report this male energy very much hating females. So we have people like, you know, having to leave the area because they feel dizzy or sick, you know, as you do when you're attached with the energy. People breaking down in tears in that area as well. Always ladies. But men always claim that there's nothing going on. They don't feel the atmosphere there. They don't feel anything. It's all about the women.
And these are even men who are, I don't take this the wrong way, but not all men are as sensitive as women can sometimes be.
No,
are these men who are still sensitive enough to what changes and...
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about skeptics, even people who are, you know, really open to spirit. They would say that area is not very active, whereas females, on the other hand, would tell you a whole different story.
Interesting.
So it's, and I'm not talking about, you know, just doing the tabletop Victoriana work, you know, with glasses, Ouijas, and table tipping, or even the equipment. Don't tend to like the equipment on that floor either. It's feelings and, you know, being touched and just the emotions that wash over the females who are in that area. They just feel like, you know, that they're not wanted. So, really interesting area. I'd be interested to see what you get.
We're going to have to talk off air about when I'm going to come, aren't we? Because you've got to be there for this one, though, Chris. If I'm coming to Stoke, you've got to be there.
I'm 2 minutes away. I'll be there.
Wow. Well, it definitely sounds like it's... I mean, I haven't even touched on like 7 of the other murders that I found that have taken place in Burslem in the area that could actually... You know, the pub could have been their local. It could, like we said, they could even have actually happened at the local.
And just taken across. It's like the story where no one ever dies at Disney, you know?
Yeah.
Well, they do, but then they don't get to, you know, signed off as being dead until they're actually in a hospital or whatever. That's right. There was a lot of dead on site.
Well, it wouldn't do much for business, would it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Everything's all smiles and flowers at Disney. But I'm going to look a bit more into this 5-year-old who was drowned and see if I can find out a bit more information about them and see if that sort of helped. But they say that was a 5-year-old child in 1908. So it does fit in that. And I hadn't. Just anyone who's listening who's like, yeah, right, she told him about this. I didn't actually tell him about this case. I told him about a different murder case while we were talking before we came on.
Yeah, I mean, literally, 10 minutes before you went live, we just opened up, and So like you say, there's eight murders that you reported, and I haven't really covered any of them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8 murders that were listed in the newspaper just in a half an hour search I was doing. There might even be more. But yes, there was all over the sort of span of, when was the earliest one I found? That was 1877, then 1878, then 1908, and then 1913, 1922, 1927, and 1946. And that's when I kind of stopped looking because I was getting a bit miserable.
Yeah, I'm sure in our local paper, the Sentinel, there's been 1 or 2 since then as well.
Yeah, I gave up after I got to 1940. I thought that's enough just to start with, crikey. But But not all of those were actually found guilty of the murder. A couple were actually classed as being in self-defence, and one, he killed his brother when he was drunk in 1913, and he was actually... they did actually...
Could have got that alcohol from the leopard. You never know.
He could have got the alcohol from... Exactly. There are synchronicities that could be happening here. But no, apparently him and his brother had a fight, and he killed his brother by accident. And even his wife asked them to give him clemency because he didn't mean to do it. But the thing was, that was 1913, so what's the betting? 12 months later, he ended up going to war and didn't make it anyway. But that's the cynic in me. It does sound a fascinating place, and it does sound as though there's so much more to find behind the scenes. And yeah, I'd love it if any of your team get any evidence they want me to look into. Please let me know, because I'd love to see if I can verify any of it with historical events.
Oh, definitely, because like I say, we go there that much, you know. We just need to start documenting it a little bit more, which is what a lot of event companies don't really do enough of, I suppose.
No.
They just do the event, next, you know, move on.
Yeah. And then you get a writer like me saying, come on, I want to write about this. What's happened to you? Oh, I don't know. Come on, give me some stuff. Give me some information so I can dig into it for you. Yeah. It's definitely an interesting one. And you know, one of the original rock gods himself came from Burslem. And no, I don't mean Robbie Williams.
Well, he did as well, but
he did, but he's not one of I'm talking about Lemmy Kilminster.
Yeah.
Of Motorhead. He was from Burslem. They're one of the original sex, drugs and rock and roll, I think, that man. But it's an area, it's got so much happened in such a, if you like, quite tight area. It's fascinating.
Well, I know, I mean, Stoke on Trent itself has had so much, but you know, it's not there anymore. It was a great place to be back in the Industrial Revolution, I'd say. Yeah, definitely.
So what is coming up for haunted houses in 2020 that you can tell us about?
Oh, well, I've got my little tootsies into a National Trust property, so that's coming up. I know we discussed last time how they dislike paranormal activity and paranormal investigations, but yeah, that's coming up. So
can you tell us which one, or is it not released yet?
Or not as yet, because I've not released it yet, but maybe once the live light is finished, I might be able to.
You tease, Mr. Chell, you
definitely.
Tease.
I'm very pleased to say Caldicott Castle has opened up again to investigations. One knows where that is. It's in Monmouthshire, near Chepstow. Mm-hmm. Fantastic medieval castle of original foundings from 1086. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of royal attachments to the castle as well, so really looking forward to getting back into that one. Mm-hmm. So there's quite a few large locations and small intimate locations all coming up. So working really hard and also encroaching into the south a little bit. So sorry to anyone who doesn't want us there. But
you're at Harwich Redoubt soon.
And Kelvin Hatch as well coming up. And
you do realise they're all very near me, those ones.
Oh yeah, we expect to see you. Yeah.
I'll bore the hell out of your guest in the history club.
Oh gosh, no! I'll be throwing you a uniform. You can help out, my love. And another great location is we've just taken on Castle Goring as well, which is the home of. So that's on the south coast. So excellent place with a famous occupant.
Very good. Well, if anyone wants to find out what you've got going on, they can head on over to the Facebook page, can't they? Or your
Facebook
website?
Page. The website, is this me plug?
It's your plug time, plug away.
Okay, it's www.haunted-houses.co.uk. How was that?
Very good. Very good. You actually you remembered it.
I did. And if those who don't know what a hyphen is, it's a dash.
It's the little straight line, in the middle,
in between them, that's the one.
Yeah, or just go over to the Facebook page, and you'll find all the details there as well. Well, thank you ever so much for your time tonight, Mr. Chell.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure as always, and we'll get something sorted for 2020 and get you back on air again.
Oh, excellent! With so hopefully, like I say, I'll be in good health then. I'll have my full voice, which I'm still struggling with that. But
you did well.
Thank you so much.
I quite like the croaky Staffordshire thing. It's quite nice.
Excellent. Keeping it real.
Well, that has been the lovely Mr. Christopher Chell of Haunted Houses. Isn't he gorgeous? We love talking to Christopher. But do, if you get the chance, do check out the Leopard Inn, because, like I say, the research for it, this show. I mean, I love my research on all my shows. I don't have a favourite child, but it's been intriguing, and it's one of those I could have done a lot more of, and I had to actually put it down and, actually look after my real children. Next week, I'm going to be talking to the one and only Evil Queen herself, Miss Kerry Greenaway, all about Harwich Readout. There you go. How's that a link for you? It's going to be featuring in my next book, which hopefully should be coming out in January, but we're going to be talking about some of Kerry's experiences at Harwich, and seeing if there's anything that happened to me there as well, which is similar. I will say it is a pre-record because it's a big birthday for Kerry that Wednesday, and so she's not going to be around. So do make sure you start sending her birthday messages before then and make her feel loved. Give her some... She can't hear you, by the way, Chris. You're muted. Sorry, I've got Chris talking to me in my ear. I thought I'd better tell him he's muted. Anyway, thank you ever so much for listening. Haunted Histories tonight. Don't forget, tomorrow is the PSH radio show. Don't worry if you've missed any of the shows on Parasearch, because you can catch them all on Spreaker to download or to listen to after the event, and also YouTube. And just make sure you hit the click, like, share and subscribe button. But until next week, my little lovelies, thank you ever so much for listening. Have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.